The North Pond Hermit. The North Pond area of Maine's Belgrade Lakes seemed to be one of the most peaceful places on Earth, but there was a problem. For 3 decades, over 1,000 reports of break-ins in the residents' cabins were made, and nobody was able to find who the perpetrator was. These thefts always occurred when nobody was home, and strangely enough, they happened more frequently in the days before Memorial Day and after Labor Day. These incidents became so frequent and bizarre that people started talking about the thief as an urban legend, adding fake details as time went on and talking about him in horror stories. It wasn't even known if all of that was caused by a single person or a group, and some started thinking that nobody was ever going to pay for it. The legend kept on spreading while no new significant evidence was found until April 2013. A police officer arrested a man named Christopher Thomas Knight who had a really weird attitude. He refused to answer any questions from the police, and when asked about it, he said that he was ashamed of himself. After a while, it was discovered that the man was actually a hermit who had lived in that area for decades without talking to a single human being, having only said hi to a hiker in 27 years. When asked how long he'd been there, he stated that he lost track of time and explained that he'd lived like that since Chernobyl's incident. This shows that he was only 20 years old when he decided to be a hermit, and he never explained why. The only possession he had was the glasses he kept from high school. Everything else he used to survive was stolen. He went to extreme measures to avoid any human contact and to preserve his privacy, such as not lighting fires and always moving at night. Crazily enough, he didn't even know what the internet was. He was finally sentenced to 7 months in prison, and according to local authorities, he's still living a quiet life in rural Maine as of now. Serial Snuggler. In 2004, girls at Louisiana State University started thinking that they were being watched and snuggled up against while sleeping. This became a recurring story in the talks at school, but no clear evidence was found. That was the case until August 2004, when a man from Baton Rouge was sentenced to community service for breaking into apartments to cuddle sleeping women. He used to break into their homes, eat their food, fold their clothes, and snuggle them. In one instance, he made nachos, while in another one, he crawled into one woman's bed to rub her stomach. The judge said that he led a commendable life before starting his notorious crime spree and sentenced him to a 12-year suspended sentence, 5 years probation, 200 hours of community service, and regular drug tests. Skin shoes. In horror movies and popular media in general, it's not uncommon to see things made out of bones, skin, or other body materials. Sadly, however, this doesn't only happen in movies. George Parrott, also known as Big Nose George, was a criminal in the American Wild West. He was known for stealing cattle and robbing travelers. Once caught, he was found guilty of murder and sentenced to death by hanging, and no one cared to claim the body. But then, something disturbing happened. 2 doctors present at the time asked to have the body for medical study. One did use it for his studies, closely analyzing his brain, but the other one used it for another purpose. He took the skin and made some shoes out of it. West Hobart Haunted House. People who went through West Hobart, a suburb in Australia, kept reporting paranormal activities like ghost hauntings and apparitions for years, but most of them had little evidence to back them up. The place itself had a little bit of a creepy vibe, causing people to think that most of these stories were just made up, until one particular story started showing signs of truth. In the late 80s, there were rumors that a house was so haunted that it made the residents go insane. Everyone tried to stay as far away from the house as possible, and the local newspapers kept talking about it. Seeing the public scare that this caused, authorities were alerted and entered the house, discovering something shocking. They didn't see ghosts or anything of the sorts, but a suspicious tree above the house. When they checked further, they saw that it had datura plants falling in the family's water tank. Datura is known as the devil's trumpet because of its extremely powerful hallucinogenic properties, with many uses in Aztec and voodoo rituals. It's so powerful that even incredibly small doses can lead to dangerous deliriums, if not death. The residents had been drinking microdoses of this substance unawarely, causing them to slowly lose their mental sanity. Candyman. An urban legend that takes place from a film called Candyman says that if you repeat the word Candyman several times while looking at a mirror, he will appear. In the actual film, he usually pops out of the medicine cabinet or out of the mirror itself. But this story isn't just an urban legend anymore. In 1987, the Chicago Reader published a story about Ruth McCoy, a woman living in a Chicago housing project who made a terrifying call to 911, saying that she was getting attacked in her own apartment. Responders got in their cars and drove to her house, but when they got there, she was found dead of gunshot wounds. Investigators took the case later on and found out that the murderers gained access to her house by breaking through the connecting wall from the near apartment, climbing through the medicine cabinet. Auto-Defenestration. Defenestration is the act of throwing someone out of a window, and you may have heard a well-known story about it during your lifetime. The legend says that a lawyer was showing off his office and demonstrating to some people that his windows were shatterproof, so he decided to throw himself against the window to prove his point. The window didn't break, but it dislodged from the frame and plummeted to the ground along with the lawyer. What many people don't realize is that this isn't an urban legend. It's a true story. Gary Hoy, a Canadian lawyer, was on the 24th floor of his office building at the Toronto Dominion Centre in July 1993 when performed the test that led to his tragic death. Mexican underground tunnels. The residents of Puebla City in southeast Mexico kept telling folktales about a mysterious network of tunnels hidden beneath the city, even though no evidence supporting this was found for hundreds of years. This changed in 2015 when a construction crew started excavating the site and discovered a crazy tunnel network of about 6 miles in length. These tunnels went around the whole city, and it's believed that they were constructed from the 16th to the 19th century. Nowadays, they're open as a tourist attraction, a live burial. Most of us have probably heard the story of someone being buried alive, only to find later on that there are scratch marks on the inside of the coffin. This urban legend probably stems from the real case of Octavia Hatcher. She fell ill and went into a coma in the late 1800s, and not long after, she was pronounced dead and buried. Suspicions started to arise when not even a week later, other people began showing similar symptoms to Octavia, falling into a coma but then waking up. Her husband, worried she had been buried alive, ordered her to be unburied, and sadly, he was right. Octavia was found dead in her casket with a scratched face and bloody fingers. Fake cops. A popular urban legend has recently been circulating, saying that some ill-willed people are posing as police officers to pull people over, only to then kidnap them or commit other crimes. For the perpetrator, this would be fairly easy to do, as flashing lights for their cars can be found almost anywhere on the internet. However, this isn't only an urban legend. It actually happened in many documented cases. For example, in 2018 in rural Bloomington, a man saw the police's flashing lights behind him and pulled over. However, when he did, a man came out and tried to subdue him. Luckily, he was able to drive away unharmed. A similar thing happened in the UK too, when a man was driving on the M40 motorway and had a minor collision with another car. After this happened, he saw the flashlights behind him and pulled over, thinking that the police were about to intervene. What he did not know, though, was that this was a fake police car, and the people inside it took advantage of the situation to rob him. A group of men emerged from the fake police car, assaulted him, and stole his belongings, leaving him severely injured. If you want to discuss this video or suggest an idea for the next one, join my Discord, link in the description.